Hey retro gamers. Today we head back to the year 2000 and try to survive yet another viral outbreak in Resident Evil Code Veronica for the SEGA Dreamcast. I'm Eddie Inzauto, and this is Smashing Bricks. Hey, welcome to Smashing Bricks, a retro gaming podcast, a show about revisiting classic video games together to see if they hold up to the rose tint of nostalgia. This is episode 55. I'm Eddie Inzauto, and today I'm joined by games journalist Danny Russell. You're also the former senior global community manager for retro IPs at Sega. That's amazing. Hey, Danny, what's up?
That's me. Yeah, all good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Actually, well, we talked a little bit before this. We both had some real technical issues, both in computer land and in my house. But I think we're all okay now because we're going to be talking about video games, which always makes us happy, I think, at least for me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, hey, Danny, who are you? How are you? What's going on? You're a new guest here on Smashing Bricks.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. I'm good. I guess you've kind of introduced me already, but I was senior global community manager at Sega for about 7 years. Before that, I was working in games journalism on a few different sites like Pocket Gamer and that sort of thing, and writing for different magazines, both in Japan and in the UK. Now I'm getting more back into the games journalism side of thing, and I think I'm just keeping my focus retro. So yeah,
very cool.
I'm very happy to be here.
I love that. I love focusing on retro. That's what we do. And speaking of retro, this isn't in the outline that I sent you, but what I like to do for new guests sometimes is a quick series of questions, a little bit of this or that, and it'll help give our listeners some idea of like where you come from in gaming.
Yes, please. Sure.
Okay. So first question, I guess, is when did you start gaming? Like, how did you enter into gaming as a hobby or lifestyle? Was it a particular console, video game, genre, the computer platform, time, year, era? What was it?
So I'm going to say, my first ever game was Donkey Kong Jr., like the Game & Watch, like the actual physical Game & Watch title. But I wouldn't say I'm into games based on that. I'd say when I really got into video games was I received like a hand-me-down original Game Boy with Super Mario Land, Bill and Ted's Excellent Game Boy Adventure, Tetris, and Nemesis, which I think is Gradius.
Got it. Not Resident Evil 3.
Not Resident Evil 3. That came a bit later. I think after that, I was very into the Mega Drive or Genesis. And from there, I don't know, Sega Saturn, then PlayStation, Nintendo 64. And then I just decided I had to play everything whenever I could eventually afford it. But yeah, I've I guess probably my teenage years was around like the PS2, GameCube, Dreamcast era. So that's when I was like most into everything. And it was at a time also when you probably could kind of know every video game that existed. Whereas now, I don't think that's anywhere near possible.
Yeah, I miss knowing everything about everything in video games.
Right.
That was kind of cool. Okay, so next question is, what is your favorite video game genre?
Ooh. I think I'd normally go for saying RPGs, maybe slightly more on the action side, like Zelda, but I do still like the traditional JRPGs as well, or, Western RPGs like, Elder Scrolls and that sort of thing as well. I'll say RPGs, I guess.
Okay. Now we're going to do a few like this or that. PC versus console.
What's a Steam Deck?
That's a great question. The lines are blurred.
Yeah.
I'm going to call that PC.
Yeah, I mean, I do, if I'm sitting down to play a game for a long time, want it on the big screen, then I'll probably most likely play it on Xbox, just because I'm so entrenched in like the backwards compatibility and all that kind of stuff and the catalog on there. But generally, I find myself playing handheld most, and I think that's always been the case for me. So at the moment, it's somewhere between Switch 2 and the Steam Deck.
Okay. My favorite console war to ask about, Super Nintendo versus Genesis for a Sega kid, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to say Genesis in this case.
Okay.
I also didn't have Super Nintendo until university, so
got it.
Like which was like 15 years after it came out, something like that. So I was a bit late to the party on the Super Nintendo. I was a bit more like emulator focused on it, maybe we should say, in the late 90s.
A little bit later.
Hmm.
Yeah. Another one of these, PlayStation versus Nintendo 64.
Definitely Nintendo 64. Like probably 3 of my top 5 games are Nintendo 64 games.
Nice. Okay, a couple more. Favorite developer / publisher, if you have one.
I think Capcom. It's going to be Capcom overall.
Oh, sweet. I love it. Love to hear it.
Topic.
And lastly, favorite game of all time, if you have one.
It's not been beaten yet, but always the forefront of my mind is Majora's Mask.
Ooh.
That's just my favorite.
So
definitely
good.
my favorite 3D Zelda. But yeah, so I like how dark it is. And even though I generally don't like mechanics where you have to keep redoing things, it's just the way that it's done. I love it.
I love that answer. That's maybe my second favorite Zelda game, I think. Very cool. All right. So that's Danny, everybody. Now you know everything about his gaming tastes. I hope that was helpful. Thanks for cooperating with me, putting you on the spot like that for these hard-hitting questions. Okay. But, playing off of your favorite game, we are playing a game from the year 2000, same year.
Ooh.
Resident Evil -CODE Veronica. Resident Evil Code Veronica. And my favorite punctuation of any video game. What is going on there?
Oh, God.
Yeah, this one came out in 2000 for the Dreamcast in February, March, and May in Japan, North America, and the EU, respectively. And then it was pretty quickly remade as Code Veronica X, also for the Dreamcast, but then for the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube as well in 2001 to 2003 or 4, depending on the platform. And those have slight differences. We'll talk about which we played in a while. This was made by Capcom Production Studio 4? Question mark? Maybe?
Ah, yes. Studio 4, of course.
Maybe. We'll see. There's some interesting tidbits about the development of this guy. And, of course, published by Capcom. It's a survival horror game. It's in the Resident Evil franchise. We know what that is. Most people know what that is. And this one's a little bit different from the ones that came before it because it was made with all 3D graphics, whereas the previous ones had all pre-rendered backgrounds and 3D character models. So that's new. We'll talk about how we experience this franchise in our personal histories in a bit. But basically, these are kind of like adventure games in action form, right? That's how I always see Resident Evil games. Is that how you see Resident Evil games?
Well, I mean, back then there was still a bit of puzzle, item management sort of thing, right? I definitely would pick up absolutely everything I could find in the game, so I was often just lugging around far too much and having to find item boxes and things. But yeah, it was before it became very actiony.
Yeah, built on a lot of different locks and different keys, whether they were shaped like the head of an eagle or an actual key or whatever. Lots of locks and keys in this. but it's a shooting game, when you come down to the actual action of it, right?
Or a stabbing.
Or stabbing.
Slashing,
yeah. Some of that. I don't do much of that in Resident Evil games because I find it very unreliable. I do lots of running away, though.
Oh, yes. That's integral, I think, to any Resident Evil game.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the tank controls in a bit. But that is definitely a thing. Push forward to move forward, push backward to backstep, and sideways turns the character. Highly unusual in today's gaming landscape, but it was the norm for these games.
Back and B for quick turn.
Back and B for quick turn. I think that started. Did that start in this one or did that start in 3? I think that started in 3.
It might have been 3. That was another knifey one.
Okay. And it has a story. Some people are really into the story, I hear. And it's told via some cutscenes, some dialogue, some files, like reading archives. Just the classic Resident Evil storytelling style. So, as a man who loves Capcom, tell me about your history with this game. And also, I'm curious to know which Resident Evil games you have played before.
Well, with this game, I originally picked it up on Dreamcast, of course. I remember playing it a bunch with my cousins who were definitely too young to be watching whatever I was doing in these games. And before that, I'm not sure. I think my only experience with Resident Evil before that might have been at a friend's house who had a modded PlayStation and was using the swap disc trick to play a pirated version of Resident Evil 2.
Ooh.
But his whole family was sat around watching.
I like that.
And I used to have a friend who'd tell me about the Resident Evil series at school. And just, we'd be talking about it through break time just for hours and days.
Okay, so essentially Code Veronica was your first true and total Resident Evil experience then?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Oh, okay. But then you continued with the series or went back to the old games or what?
Yeah, I went back. I think probably going through them properly must have been on the GameCube because they made, a cognizant effort to release all of them up to that point on there. So I think I must have caught up at that point. But since then, I've played it like the originals on PlayStation, PC ports, all of the other re-releases on, XBLA or PS3, wherever really.
Nice.
And the modern ones, of course.
Very cool. Well, of course, you say of course, but listen to this. For me, we've already recorded an episode about Resident Evil 2 much earlier in the show's history, so listeners will have gotten some of this, but I played the original Resident Evil on PlayStation 1 pretty much right when it came out, and it was amazing to me. It just kind of blew me away. It was like a really new sort of experience. So I played that. Kind of played 2, but also mostly kind of skipped it. Then, kind of like you, went back and played some of the older ones after playing the remake and Resident Evil 0. So I went back and played 3, and apparently this as well. We'll talk more about that. And I think 2 was 2 also there, or did I play that on the Nintendo 64? I probably played that on the N64. But then I played everything after that up to 7. And did not play any of the really modern ones aside from just dabbling in Resident Evil 2 remake for the first little part of the police precinct. So I still have to catch up. But overall, I have a really pretty broad coverage of the series in my gaming history. So that's me.
7 was that disappointing to you, huh?
7? No, I loved 7. I see what you're saying. No, that was just a matter of coincidence. Just I haven't gotten around to playing any of the newer ones. I really live very heavily in the retro world with video games at this point in my life. Used to play everything.
So just give it 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. 20 years, I'll play the rest of them. All right, so that's our histories. That takes us into a little bit of the game's history itself. We said it came out in the year 2000. This was kind of a transitional period in gaming, right? Because early PS2 games were starting to come out, but we were still living primarily in the PS1 era on the Sony side, but Dreamcast came out, just a few months before this, really, 99.99, and this came out in February of the next year. So it wasn't a whole lot going on the Dreamcast except for the earliest titles and some of the transitional stuff on the other consoles, but we had games like Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy IX coming out, as you said, Majora's Mask. What else were some big games of that time? Phantasy Star Online, Ridge Racer 5.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing really right in the pocket with this sort of game, except that RE3 had come out, again, just a few months earlier. That came out at the end of 99. So they were really kind of released right alongside one another. And I even remember back then seeing these games advertised, and to me, after going 1, 2, now we had a subtitle on Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and we had no number on Resident Evil Code Veronica. So this might have contributed to me not knowing what to do with my life at this point. So I just didn't play either of them right when they came out. But yeah, those came out pretty close to each other. They were actually developed concurrently.
I can't remember when Dino Crisis came out as well, but I think it was not too long before, right? And then it got a Dreamcast port as well.
Right, Dino Crisis. That was 1999 also, and Dino Crisis 2 was 2000. So yeah, these were all right in there together. They, I guess after Resident Evil 2, they were like, okay, how many times can we capitalize on this design philosophy? And this game engine, I suppose. They're probably all in the same engine. I didn't look into that.
There's also Deep Fear on the Saturn. I don't know if you ever would have played that. It had a very limited release, so I think most people are probably playing emulated versions of it.
Oh.
But it was in a submarine.
I literally have never heard of that game. And that is unusual.
It's quite fun.
Wow. I got to look into that. Deep Fear. Is that a Capcom
it's
game?
Very late on in the Saturn life. I don't know who developed that. It's definitely Japanese, but I can't place who the developer was.
Interesting. A 1998 video game developed by Systems Seicom and published by Sega. Survival horror. Interesting. Wow. So it's like a Resident Evil-like, essentially?
In a submarine.
Nice. That's cool.
I think there must be... I've never played it all the way through. But you can imagine things that go wrong in submarines, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's terrifying. Just the idea of a submarine is a terrifying concept to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so since this was kind of developed concurrently with 3, we have some interesting stuff going on. Shinji Mikami was the producer, but not the director. But he wasn't on 2 or 3 either. And you had different people mostly working on this game than who had worked on prior games. Even the composers here, there was a trio that were not on any of the previous games or on the ones after. This game from a unsuccessful port of Resident Evil 2 to the Sega Saturn. So they decided they weren't able to really make this, so they wanted to make something else for Sega fans. And they started this on Saturn, but they needed more time. So Sega instead said, why don't you make this on the upcoming Dreamcast console? It's going to be so much more powerful. And at the same time, we had the kind of side story game, Resident Evil Nemesis, being developed on the PlayStation by the main team. And that one was actually intended to be more of a spin-off to the series than this one was. But that one got the number for some sort of politics. Basically, they wanted to keep the numbered releases on the PlayStation consoles. And then they made the side nomenclature on other consoles. And Shinji Mikami has even said that it feels like this should be the real numbered one as opposed to 3 because it kind of fits a little bit better as far as the story.
3's a bit more 2.5, isn't it? It's quite a lot shorter as well.
Yeah. So That was something just about like the deals between companies as opposed to what is really intended by the people creating the games. It should be Resident Evil 3 Code Veronica and then Resident Evil Nemesis. But this is how it was. So now because these two games were kind of developed concurrently, much of Code Veronica's staff was outsourced because so many of them had been working on RE3. So there was Capcom, there was Flagship, there was XIX Entertainment assisting with environments, Nextech was doing the technical development, Capcom Production Studio 4 still did art direction and character design, but then even Sega was sending some of their developers to help out with the game at this point. So this was an interesting team. It was the Franken team of Capcom making Code Veronica. Interesting. I never knew that until...
It came out pretty smooth considering
yeah.
that many people working on it from so many different places. I can't even imagine the politics of working with so many Japanese companies at once.
Yeah, that must have been weird, to say the least. This did get a port to, I think it was a port to the PS3 and 360 in 2011, which I also didn't even realize. And of course, we have the remake, which was just announced. Like after you and I decided to talk about this game, they announced the remake for this, which had been clamored for by fans for quite a while, I think. So this game was well received. It won GameSpot's Best Adventure Game that year and was runner-up for GameSpot's everything. Best Dreamcast game, best sound, best graphics, technical, and overall game of the year, runner-up. I wonder what that went to. I didn't see. And then later on, it was on some lists. Game Informer ranked Code Veronica as the 69th best game of all time on their top 100 that came out in 2001. And, well, I guess it was pretty close to this game's release. It was only a year later. And then Games Radar named it the 14th best Dreamcast game of all time. Wow. I wonder what the 13 other better Dreamcast games were. That would be interesting. Overall...
I guess probably classic first-party stuff.
Yeah, probably. Overall, it came out with a 94% on Metacritic aggregate score after all said and done. So, it's a pretty good game, I guess. That's what they say.
Pretty good.
Anyway, that's what they all say about it. But what do we say about it? Because we played it. Okay, so that brings us to our retro replay experience. So first thing I have to ask is, did you play Code Veronica or Code Veronica X? And can you tell everyone listening what that even means?
Yes and yes.
Nice.
But I played Code Veronica X on XBL label, so like on Xbox, like the Xbox 360 version that was released.
Okay.
Just because, I wanted to play it on the big screen, that kind of thing, and it was the easiest thing to hook up. But Code Veronica X, as you said earlier on, there was like a Japanese second release of Code Veronica, and it added there's not much more than like a few cutscenes with Wesker, and maybe there's like some extra items just to make the game maybe a little bit easier. But not a lot more than that I can remember. But then that was used as the base for porting over to the PS2. And which I guess, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see actually, whether the PS2 version overtook the original Dreamcast version at all, but I feel like it didn't do as well in Europe because it was only released as like one of the Platinum Hits games, even though it hadn't been previously released on PS2. But yeah, how about you? Which version did you play?
So I played the same version that I played originally back in the early to mid 2000s, Code Veronica X, on the GameCube. But here's the kicker. when we decided to play this, in my mind, I thought that I had only dabbled in Code Veronica X and played like a couple hours, a little bit.
Mm.
I opened up my old save file because I still have the memory card, and
Oh, wow.
my last save was Chris in
Okay.
at like the last save point in the game, like right
Oh,
about
wow,
to
okay.
fight Alexia. So apparently I played the entire game and didn't remember basically anything,
Oh,
which is
that
weird.
doesn't make it sound great.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. What I did remember was fighting the boss on the airplane. I don't know what that
Oh, yeah.
tyrant type enemy is called, but I distinctly remember that fight.
Yes, very memorable, and that was the point as well for the disc change between disc 1 and disc 2 for the Dreamcast version.
Yeah. So that's what I played, and I didn't make it super far. I made it to Antarctica and a little bit into that this time. How did you get that far? Did you get further? Did you finish? What'd you do?
I got Chris to Antarctica.
Okay.
I swear I was playing it for dozens of hours because it feels like a long game, like not in a bad way, but like certainly longer than any of the single scenarios in Resident Evil 2, which were the longest up until then.
Yeah.
But yeah, you start off in some kind of military base. I can't remember why Claire is there exactly.
She was imprisoned. It's a prison island and military base.
You see in the intro that she gets caught by a guy after like blowing a dozen guys up by shooting an explosive barrel or something like that. After
cool
throwing
cutscene.
some very cool moves.
Yeah, she was super cool.
Like she drops. It's very what's his name, like Desperado Rodriguez kind of style, like dropping her gun, and then as it's about to hit the floor, she just falls faster than the gun and shoots it at the barrels.
Yeah,
and then some guy's just behind her and whisks her away to jail. But yeah, this is it's set 6 months after Resident Evil 2. And the virus in this one is related to the T virus in 2, but it's just, I guess, a spin-off of that. But yeah, I can't. How long would it be? I'd say, I don't think it's truly like quarters, but like the first segment is Claire, and then the second segment is her going to Antarctica with everyone's best friend Steve. And then it switches over as I think they're escaping Antarctica to Chris, who's like then landing in the French military base because I think Claire had contacted Leon saying like, oh, let Chris know that I'm in trouble over here, something like that. And then he just carries on following traces of her until he gets over to Antarctica himself.
Yeah. So this game kind of continues on an emerging tradition at this point where, like in RE2, you had, in first Resident Evil, you could choose either Jill or Chris, and that was that. And then RE2 had, you do one, then you do the other, and they kind of connect for the first time. Then I don't know that Nemesis does any of that, although you do switch over to, what's his name, Carlos or something at some point, and then back to Jill. But this one kind of really leans into playing two characters together, like as part of the same campaign. And then they continue doing more of that in like 0. And then you play a little bit of other characters in 4. And then they really leaned into it again in 5. So this was kind of like establishing that switching over as like, yeah, this is a thing that Capcom wants to do in Resident Evil games, I think.
Let's not forget how they completely overdid it in 6.
6, we don't talk about.
I mean, I talk about it a lot.
Oh no!
For everyone else, yeah.
Okay. In 6 they separated into like 4 different characters or so, right? Or more.
But it's just very repetitive when you're replaying 6 because there's segments in 6 where you replay it inside each campaign. So some segments you're playing many more times than you're playing as single playthroughs.
Yeah. Okay, so back to this game as instead of being part of the larger
yes.
series. Tell everybody like what kind of the gameplay feels like in this game if they aren't familiar with a Resident Evil game or with this Resident Evil game.
Well, this was like the bridge between, still a fair while before. When was 4? It was like 2004, right? But it
5.
was the bridge between like the isometric 2D games, which everyone thinks were 3D, like in the same way like the Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9 games were, right?
Yeah.
And even the GameCube, Resident Evil 0 and remake of 1. But this one, it still keeps the charm of like the George Romero-esque like weird angles and things like that, even though the game is like fully in 3D and you're not able to control the camera at any point, apart from a couple of first-person segments, actually. But the feel, I think it still captures a lot of the vibe of the early Resident Evil games. There's, analogs to like mansions, that look very similar to maybe like the Raccoon Police Department police station, and the original mansion and that kind of stuff. But if you're approaching this without having played any Resident Evils at all, I don't know that I would recommend it, to be honest, even though it was my first proper one, because it's very long.
It is very long, yeah.
But I do like the Redfields the most, so I had good fun with it.
Nice. I love that because, interestingly enough, we'll talk about this more in the bonus episode, the Redfields are the least interesting people in this series to me for whatever reason. I don't know why. Just so coincidence based on like when I started playing, which games I played. But yeah, this game really to me feels like an isolated experiment as this kind of bridge between those classic games and RE4, because it's neither, it's mostly classic Resident Evil, but not quite. And it's definitely not Resident Evil 4 style, because you have, as you said, they're all 3D environments for the first time. So to me, you get less of first of all, there's a lot less in the game, like in the environments, because they would have to render every little object, every little piece of furniture, every little thing in the space. So I found that the spaces actually felt much more empty in this game. All the environments were very open. They were like clean compared to the pre-rendered backgrounds of the other games. It felt like something different, like an approximation of what the first 3 games were to me. And it was it looked distinctly Dreamcast like, because it had those, it was a very obviously polygonal style, but polished, better than a Nintendo 64, but still kind of that rounded polygonal look. What were you about to say?
Oh, I was going to say, like, I can see what you mean, but maybe it's because this was me approaching it as my first proper Resident Evil, so I hadn't, really seen, like now when I'm thinking to the beginning of Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 3, and it's like, just how dirty Raccoon City is and all that kind of stuff, even though, it was just relying on pre-rendered background scenes. I can see what you mean.
Dirty and cluttered.
Yeah, and this is very clean by comparison, but I suppose it's a slightly different setting. There's just a lot of things on fire in this one.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But another thing that I notice about this one, being that sort of bridge game, is that it does mostly keep the static camera angles, but they are less dramatic. And sometimes they move a little bit, almost like the first couple of Silent Hill games. They'll be fixed somewhere, but then move a little bit.
Yeah, like following you down corridors or that kind of thing. But I find that it still does what the original 3 did in terms of like putting you, like you'll just walk through a door and then you can't see what's in front of you, but you can hear what's in front of you.
Yeah, that gameplay effect is still there. But the emotional connection to the horror genre, I think, loses something because they cannot physically place that camera within the 3D environment as freely as they can place it in a pre-rendered background game, because there is no environment in the pre-rendered background game. It's a picture.
Yeah.
So that I definitely noticed as someone who was like very keenly attuned to those older games. And it was interesting. It was interesting to feel how the vibe to me felt a little bit less environmentally dense and dominated by the feeling of the space that you're in.
Did you feel safer when you were playing it then?
I suppose a little bit. I felt like more like I was running around, I can't say any other 3D era action adventure game, but more so than one of the classic Resident Evils. Just the atmosphere was a little bit less intense.
I'm just remembering now as well that if you're playing Code Veronica X as the first time playing this game, it seems probably a lot more ridiculous because the main things that they've added are scenes with Wesker, and it's like he's doing a lot of like his Resident Evil 5 kind of stuff, like just being ridiculously overpowered and that sort of thing, which I don't think there was anywhere near as much of that ridiculousness in the first version. But yeah, that's a bit of a tone changer as well.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, leaning into some of that, and we're kind of bouncing around here, and I don't want to continue like comparing to the other games. I have to like really stop myself from doing that, but you just want to because there's so many of them. But what I wanted to ask you is, how important is the storyline in a Resident Evil game to you? Because I am aware that there is a segment of Resident Evil fans who are deeply attached to the lore of Resident Evil. And even though I consider myself a pretty strong Resident Evil fan, I have very little interest in the continuity of the storyline and the characters throughout the series. And I don't know if that's unusual.
I don't know compared to most Resident Evil fans, but I think that definitely is something that's more on my side, just because even though I hadn't played many Resident Evil games before, like as I played the rest of the series, it just got me more and more invested. And because this is the first time that you actually have Claire and Chris, brother and sister in the same game, it just feels like a bigger deal.
Yeah.
Like, cause it's always like in the previous games, like someone's trying to find someone else. Right. So I think that lore is a big part of it. I remember like reading a lot of like the files that you'd find around, and a lot of them being very creepy, especially in the prison camp sections and bits like that. And that got me definitely a lot more invested in the world, I suppose.
Yeah. So this game talks about the Ashford family, who is a very important family in Resident Evil lore because they're kind of the originators, along with Spencer, I suppose, of some of the early viruses. And we learn a lot about the lineage of this family, and they're not really in any of the other games, but we are in a place where they're kind of in charge, right? It's their palace, their military base, their prison going on over there.
Yes. You have Claire arriving on this. It's an island, right?
It's an island.
Yeah. And she runs into Alfred. Is it Alfred?
Right.
I'm getting the A names confused now. First off, like quite near the beginning, in something that a place that looks a lot like the original Resident Evil mansion, and he seems to think that she's called for backup or that kind of thing, even though at that point, like maybe she had just done it at that point, but like the game starts with like the base being attacked and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot going on at once, but it eventually unfolds that because you start hearing Alfred talking to his sister Alexia and that kind of thing, and then eventually unfolds that maybe there's a little bit of cross-dressing going on, and maybe Alfred isn't completely there, shall we say?
Yeah.
Because his sister's actually, let's say, in cold storage, infected with, I guess, a working version of the T. Veronica virus. And she becomes one of the main antagonist towards the latter half of the game. And you have a few different boss fights with her, kind of in the same way that you do with, what's his name, Birkin in 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a spin-off of that T virus. Like, I think the T in T virus stands for tyrant, and you have the tyrants coming back in this game, the big guy in the plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I
Yeah.
getting those confused? What are the little guys with the claws? Are those hunters or something?
The little guys with the claws are
Well,
hunters.
they're kind of short. Oh no, those are hunters. Yeah.
The big guys are definitely tyrant variants, I guess we could say, right?
I think like Nemesis kind of was as well, and
Mhm.
what's his name, Mr. X.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but this one isn't named,
Got it.
I don't believe.
Yeah, so this is a funny family. I wasn't even sure. At first, I was sure that there was a brother and sister pair who were twins. Then I wasn't sure if there were two people. Then I realized that the one guy's got some problems. And then I realized that the sister was a monster, right?
Yeah.
But these two are essentially like clones. They were created in a petri dish in some way. See, this is why I'm not big on a lot of the stories, because it's like wild and hard to follow. But
yeah.
But what I do want to say is that I love the way these games tell the story, even if the story is absurd, because I love reading the files. This is another game, much like, we'll say Dark Souls, because I always have to mention it, much like BioShock, because I love how you receive story in that with your audio logs, much like, any other game where you're learning things about what has happened through text that you find in pieces, and you have to kind of figure it out. I love that. And that's here.
Yeah, I think the scariest boss in the game has a lot of that you, maybe if you're just running through and not really paying attention to files, you don't really know the backstory. So like the guy with the big hole in his chest and tentacles coming out of him, who's tied up down below one of the rooms that you were in earlier. That's actually Alfred and Alexia's dad, who they've submitted to all these experiments and so on with the virus, because after finding out how they came about, as it were. And I don't think that boss is anywhere near as scary if you just avoid reading the files and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it really adds a lot, those files and learning stuff like that. I think it's one of the more important parts of the exploration of this game. Which kind of brings me to how we experience the game, how we're going through. Can you play this game without reading any of that stuff? Yes. Can you play this game running past the majority of enemies? I suppose so. Can you play this game by shooting and killing everything? Maybe. I think there might be enough ammo in this game to do that.
There is enough ammo, yeah, if you're using it correctly, I guess.
Yeah. So with that in mind, what do you think is kind of the correct way to experience this? Is it more as a run and gun? Is it more of avoiding enemies? That sort of thing. What would you say?
I mean, I've definitely seen especially speedrunners treating it like a run and gun, but I don't think that's how most people would play it by default. But maybe now that people are much more action oriented compared to, back in the year 2000, maybe that. But I've played it through a bunch of different ways. The first times I would have played it, I think, would be much more conservative and much more careful with saving and, hoarding items and all that kind of stuff. But I remember one time at university, a friend and I were kind of hot seat gaming, playing through, but trying to use as little ammo as possible. So we were basically playing, certainly the first half, generally only with the knife. Apart from maybe a boss or two, and then the second half, wherever we could use just the knife, we were doing that. And yeah, you can get through quite a lot. I was saying earlier on that the knife is pretty slashy, but it's also very overpowered because
Is it?
if you learn how wide the angle is, because you've got to be careful, because if you bang the knife against the wall, it like wastes loads of time and then you're more likely to get attacked by the zombies. But if you learn like exactly where on their knees to attack, it will give like multiple slices through at the same time, and they tend to like fall down on their knees as well. And then while they're down, you can slice them. And if you approach them from like a side angle, then you can slice along their entire body, and it just gets loads of hits in. But it takes some practice to get that, and that's definitely not a way I'd recommend playing through it. But like you can certainly get some tips from that in terms of like whenever an enemy is down, whether it's like the dogs or the general zombies or that kind of thing, if you very quickly jump into the menu, change over to knife and then just attack, you can save a lot of ammo that way. I don't recommend it, but it's if you need a challenge, then certainly the knife is the way to go.
Wow, I did not know that. That's interesting. I just kind of avoided the knife. I guess I tried it a couple times here and there, maybe to finish off and maybe save ammo. But then I kind of decided that I had plenty of ammo. I wrote down in my book, like, oh, look, I have 180 bowgun arrows before even finding the bowgun.
The bowgun's great with the explosive arrows, but like, it feels like you've got to put 20 arrows into something to get it to kill. It looks like a pincushion by the time it's dead,
Yeah, that's true. But still, I definitely felt like this game had lots of enemies and lots of ammo. And that was a little different from, the traditional, how I feel about Resident Evil 1 or 0. 2 felt like it had a little bit more, filled up zones with a lot of enemies.
There's a lot of enemies that you could run past if you wanted to. Like, those guys with the big arms, the Bandersnatch guys?
Yes.
If you basically run around them, like, not on their arm side, they're very unlikely to catch you. So it's a case of, like, as I think you would in a lot of the other Resident Evil games, like learning the movements and that kind of thing. Because, like, sometimes when you kill enemies, they'll... new ones will regenerate in the same area. Not the same as like Resident Evil, say the remake of 1 that has like the Crimson Heads and that kind of thing, where they're more powerful. But there are, I don't know if you noticed, but there are some more powerful zombies in this where they will kind of move faster and like grab you faster and that sort of thing. But generally, I'd say you can maybe just deal with knocking down or killing a couple of enemies in a room and then just, wandering around the others.
Yeah. And you would definitely want to do that with those ones that regenerate. I discovered that they regenerate. At first I was like, wait a second. Didn't I kill everyone here? And I said, oh wait, maybe I loaded a save and I forgot. And then I came back through maybe the same area or a different area, and I'm like, okay, I definitely killed everybody here. These zombies are respawning, and I do not like that. But they look different, right? The respawning ones, they have a different look, or do they not?
I'm not sure if they're exactly the same ones, but I know there's like, I don't know if it's a bug or not, but like, if you don't make sure that some zombies are dead, like if you just shoot quickly and then run through to the next room and they're not fully dead, then they will fully regenerate in terms of having their full life again. But I know what you mean as well. Like sometimes you'll come back to an area later in the game where you've definitely cleared the room.
Oh yeah.
And it will be completely repopulated.
Fully dead, blood pool, like in classic Resident Evil style, the blood starts to pool underneath the dead body. That always indicates, okay, you've succeeded at killing this enemy. And then they just respawn, like in the graveyard in the beginning in the prison. Definitely respawn. Another area around there definitely respawn. And then I started thinking, man, maybe I just shouldn't kill them all. Maybe I should just run.
Did you realize you could push the zombies back using the D-pad, like when they're attacking you?
I did realize you could push the zombies somehow,
like before they bite you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly how I did it because I don't know.
I mean, button mashing works. because like rather than just biting you, they'll like grab onto your shoulders kind of thing first.
Hmm.
This is just the zombies. It doesn't work for any of the other enemy types.
Got it.
But that can save you, a few times.
Oh, that's great. And you can also, can't you? That's not even what I was thinking about. You can also, unless now I'm confusing Code Veronica and 3 in my mind, because I did play both of these in the last few weeks.
That might be what you're thinking of, but it didn't have kind of as complex reaction sort of thing that you get. I think in 3 was maybe the first one to implement like dodging and that kind of stuff, like actual proper dodging.
Yeah.
And then in the remakes, you started having like, you could put a grenade in their mouths, or you could like put a disposable knife in their head, that sort of thing.
Love that. Love that. Let's talk about kind of the structure of the environments and how you go through them and then retread your steps and come back to earlier areas, because I think there's a couple of ways this happens in this game, and I think it sends you on longer trips in this game and doesn't connect back quite as much from the part that I experienced. It was only after I had kind of unlocked a few different areas, like the prison, the military training facility, the palace, and the airport, did I start feeling like I was going to get items and then having to loop back and use those somewhere else to open up new paths, because at first I felt like I was just going from one place to the next. I felt like maybe, okay, this is an analogy that is only appropriate for me to say. I feel like Resident Evil Code Veronica is to Resident Evil 1 as Dark Souls 3 is to Dark Souls. And what I mean by that is that the earlier games felt like the areas you were in were more of a puzzle box in a way, and you kept unlocking things in like very connected ways. Maybe because they were smaller, they had to do that. And this one felt just more sprawling without less of that. You don't have to build like an increasingly efficient mental map of the location that you're kind of mastering. This one feels like I'm going somewhere else and I'm coming back to the place I was. I'm going somewhere else and I'm coming. You know what I mean? You're not.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's not intertwined in a knot as much as those other games were, is what I was kind of feeling.
Yeah, like I see what you mean in terms of like there's just like roads that go out quite far away to new places, and then rather than being just much more compressed and condensed in one very close area.
Yeah. And that's not to say that one is better than the other. For me, I like this sort of intertwined mass of paths within the smaller area. But what do you feel about that? Do you think like that is a benefit for the game, or do you think it's a detriment?
From my point of view, it's a benefit because you get a lot of quite different areas.
Yeah.
Just in that France section itself. Like one of my favorite parts is the Ashford residence, I guess. I'm not sure what it's properly called.
Yeah.
But you've got like the hanging doll in that room. That's like
so creepy
music track that I love. Yeah. And that's where you see like the cutscene with Alfred, where he's throwing his voice around. I don't know how he's doing it, because he must be an excellent ventriloquist, because like you're looking at him at Alexia and hearing his voice, and like you don't see the mouth move at all. But yeah, like that's like, it gives you, so you can still have like those kind of classic Resident Evil 1-esque spooky mansion vibes, but still have like a submarine section where you go to an underwater area.
Yeah, you do get to see a lot more different stuff for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so we're fighting these zombies, but there are also bosses in Resident Evil games. It's known for having a bunch of different kind of weird experiments and different creatures and stuff. What did we see here, and what was cool and what was not so cool?
one of the things that was pretty cool that I can't remember if it turns up in any previous games, but there's like at least one optional boss. Like the Tremors-esque worm boss.
Oh, the outside in the military training facility?
Yeah, you can just keep like running around it, skirting the edges of like that room that you're trying to get around.
And
that
that
kind
is
of thing.
what I did.
Yeah, that's the best way, because it's just I can't even remember if you get anything for beating it. But I think the most memorable boss is like the tyrant that we mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like how did you find? Like, how did you find that boss fight particularly hard? Like, do you remember like how you tackled it?
I remember finding it really hard the first time I played, because it's the only thing I remembered about the game. Remember, and I remember trying to trigger the box that has to knock him out of the back of the plane, and like a bunch of times him just receiving it, digging his heels in, and pushing it back, and therefore me failing that, and subsequently failing to win that battle so many times. But this time I guess I went overkill. I brought all my weapons in, shot him 1,000,000 times, and then triggered it, and he went right out. But I don't know where that line is, because he didn't stumble, he didn't fall, he didn't go down to a knee. It was just, okay, I guess I'll try it now. Hey, it worked.
Yeah, I can't remember, particular animations or anything like that, or like him bleeding more that you might see in other games or that kind of thing, that to signify him being ready to die. And I can't remember if it's possible to even kill him without throwing the box of cargo at him. But there is an easy way to do it, but I didn't find out until like, I don't know, like my 5th playthrough or something like that.
Oh man.
And that's the grenade launcher.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it has different types of ammo?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember which one it is now. It's like the biological one or something like that. I can't remember.
The BOW rounds?
Yeah, something like that. But they basically work like a Final Fantasy demi spell and just cut his HP in half every time. So you can just hit him with a few of those and then a few kind of normal rounds, and then he's ready to kind of boot off the plane.
I did use those this time.
Yeah, like that probably makes quite a huge difference. But I've also found out, like in that run that I was mentioning, that was the knife-only run, because we were too afraid to approach him with just the knife. But we found out that if you can be bothered to, you can just, without hitting him at all, you just keep throwing those cargo boxes at him. And I honestly can't remember how many you need to throw at him, but eventually he just, falls out alongside it. But you just have to keep doing a circuit of that room for far too long. So I again, don't recommend that. The grenade launcher is the way to go with whatever rounds those are. Yeah, and then other bosses. I mentioned the Nosferatu one, the Alfred and Alexia's dad, with the big creepy thing coming out, and he would spray like some kind of poison or that sort of thing. And that's the only point in the game that you actually play. Well, apart from the last boss as well, actually, you play those in first person, which is kind of a bit different and more interesting. There's also, I can't remember if it's from that boss Nosferatu. If there's a point in the game that if you get poisoned, it didn't happen to me this time, but if you get poisoned, it's a special kind of poison, and Chris needs to go off and do like something extra to save Claire or something like that from being poisoned earlier in the game. I don't know if you ran into that at all.
No. I actually, I've been kind of sitting here trying to figure out. Since we were talking about bosses, I was trying to think of like what bosses I even fought in this game.
There's the weird kind of salamander
there aren't
type thing
many
as well.
in the beginning, right?
Yeah, it takes a while for the first ones to appear.
We fought, I guess a Bandersnatch was a boss at first, but that just becomes a normal enemy after that.
Yeah, and Steve rescues you or something like that.
Steve rescues you. And then there are a couple encounters with Alfred that are not they're basically just run toward him and he runs away.
Yeah.
And I'm coming up kind of blank on bosses.
Yeah, it is. They are kind of quite spaced out in a strange way compared to other games. It's not quite as bang, bang, bang as some of the others. And I think maybe also because the story and the game's so long, basically, that maybe the impact doesn't stick around for a lot of these bosses. They seem a bit more throwaway.
Yeah. Yeah, what else? So bosses. We talked about some of the regular enemies are pretty interesting. Those spiders that are spiders, and then after you hit them a couple times, they suddenly turn into face huggers.
Oh yeah, and they'll just jump right at you.
What is that? Those are great.
That's scary.
They're awful. I hate them, but like that's a cool enemy, right?
No,
For
I hate
difficulty.
the moth. Oh yeah, for sure. They're really like, and there's no easy way to get around them at all. You basically have to kill those guys.
Yeah.
The ones that I remember hating every playthrough I've done are the moth things that lay eggs on your back.
Ugh. Yeah.
And then eventually, like, you get poisoned when it hatches on your back. That's awful.
That sucks.
And the first few playthroughs I had, I didn't realize that you could keep bats away very easily as well, by just using the lighter.
Oh.
If you use the lighter, they don't come near you. And also, even easier, as long as you don't run, the bats won't come after you.
Oh wow, that's great. Yeah. Both of those things are great. I didn't know either because I had already given away the lighter to that random dude at the beginning, he's such an interesting guy. He's just there. And is there anything more about him later, or he's just a guy?
Well, I think he's the one who catches you. Like, after you've blown up all those guys at the beginning, I think he's the one that kind of taps you on the shoulder and then takes you away, and then you're just stuck in a prison on your own with him.
And he lets you out.
You come back and give him the hemostatic medicine, and he gives you like a lockpick or something, maybe?
Yeah, you give him the lighter, and he gives you the lockpick.
And then the final thing he does, I think, before he dies, is he gives Chris the lighter back, because originally Chris had given it to Claire.
Ah, yes. Okay, that's cool. So at least he comes back a little bit later. And the lighter is definitely a Chris item in the Resident Evil lore in my brain. He's the lighter.
Yeah, I can't say that, like, Claire's given the lockpick, but she's no master of unlocking.
Right, Jill, my beloved Resident Evil character. That's the thing, like, Resident Evil 1, I played as Jill, because she was just, like, easier at the time, and I was a kid. So I never even played as Chris in the first game. Then my next real exploration of the franchise was, well, I guess it was the remake, and then 0, and then 4. I don't know. So I was like not in the Redfield world for most of this. Okay, so I want to go all the way back to something that people have to talk about when they talk about Resident Evil that we barely touched on it. The tank controls.
Oh yeah.
People complain about tank controls whenever they've shown up in video game history. And I got used to them in the first game, and with that, with that familiarity, I grew to love them. I don't know if this is Stockholm syndrome, or if it's just like, for me, I like the idea of the consistency in the control when you have the camera angles shifting all the time. It makes it...
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you would do it otherwise with this kind of semi-fixed camera, because, like, you're never in control of the camera.
Right.
So I think that it's... I have definitely played some games, but I can't think of any off the top of my head where you control based on where you are. Like, you must have run into this, I think, especially in RPGs, maybe Final Fantasy, something like that, where you end up just walking in the same door over and over because of the camera angle.
Yeah, because they switch. So annoying.
Yeah, I think maybe it's something like that. I think it was just necessity, like, in the same way that so many, especially Dreamcast games, I mean, look at, like, the Sonic Adventure games and that kind of thing, they kind of have an auto camera, even Mario 64, right? Because people aren't used to 3D cameras at that point. Like, now we take it for granted, sure, but, like, back then, like, this was all very new.
Yeah. But do you like it? Like whether it was made to get around some sort of shortcoming that they created for themselves, or if it was just a decision, it's ultimately what we played. And as I said, I grew fond of it. Did you like it, or did you always kind of say, I don't love this, but I deal with it?
I mean, I went along with it, and I think again, it's like a case of not knowing any better. But as you get used to a game, you just lock into that playstyle, right? But I would have hoped, especially by the time like the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions came around, I would have hoped that they would have added different control methods. But I don't know. Maybe they didn't because they were lazy, or maybe they didn't because it just didn't work. I would kind of, I shouldn't say this, I suppose, but in the remake, I would like there to be some kind of Easter egg where you can use tank controls, though.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the only thing that tank controls do well is the quick turn.
Yes. Very cool that they added that.
Because that can get you out of a lot of dangerous situations.
Yeah. Okay. What else? What else is important here? The sound. There's always the sound design in these games is always interesting. Now, in this one, I felt like they didn't use music as much to indicate, oh, stuff's going down now, and then, oh, everything's fine.
I found it like a lot less action and a lot more creepy, the music. Like it was more atmosphere setting and trying to, give you the heebie-jeebies sort of thing rather than, scary action or that sort of thing. And like, say I think it's true of several of the Resident Evil games, but like, I especially love the save room music in this.
Oh
it's
yeah,
like, it actually makes you feel like you're in a safe room. Like no enemy's going to come in. You can just chill for a bit and just sort your items out.
Yeah, it sounds so good, and it's actually called A Moment of Relief.
There you go.
Yeah, it's really good music. Here it is. Ah. Yeah, that is so good. All of those save musics, the save room music from every game is always my favorite part about the soundtrack.
The trouble is that I'm also imagining all the item sounds of like select, move, and all that kind of thing.
Oh, right.
At the same time, like I'm hearing that over it, even though it's a lot more.
Yes, the item boxes. Oh my God. So, are you the kind of person who looks at your item box and says, okay, I have to have all my healing items in a row, then I put all my weapons, then I put all my key items, or do you just have them haphazard in there?
I must admit that I do organize everything in there, but at least Code Veronica is not like the later games like 4 where you have to like you can actually. I mean, someone made like a mini game about it, like on Steam or something like that. It's like just focused on the item organization. So at least you don't have to do that. But I do like having all my guns together, or like I would even on some playthroughs, how like it comes up like it tells you this key item isn't useful anymore. Do you want to throw it away? I would keep it so I could put it in the item box. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, maybe.
You want to like remember your journey through Resident Evil Code Veronica. So,
Something
this
like
key,
that, yeah.
I used that to open that. Yeah. No, I get that. That's fun to like hold all your items. It gives you like a map of your experience in a way.
But it makes it so hard sometimes when you need to, you have to backtrack all the way to the nearest save room to dump stuff in the chest.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying I would ever do it. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that.
Did you have any opinion on the frequency of save rooms, like the frequency of typewriters and item boxes available to you in this game?
Yeah, I feel that they were quite generous in terms of item boxes and save points. But like, I think it's that thing that we were talking about earlier of like, that kind of mansion-esque place is kind of like your main base, and like, you always know at the top of the stairs to the right there's that save room before you head off to the other kind of Ashford household or whatever, and so you know that wherever you are on the map, you can always go there.
Yeah.
And you're never too far away from one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like the ink ribbon system in a way, but I dislike it also. It's a love-hate relationship because I like the idea of having, well, it's two things, right? Because it's a limited spatial element, like it's only in that one room. You have to go to it to save. But then it's also an item that you have to keep enough of in order to save. And, the original game, that was so intense and different and interesting and cool. It made it incredibly tense. But as far as like friendliness to the player and respecting my time, it's aggressive, So where do you come down on that?
I feel like in Code Veronica it's relatively generous compared to earlier games in the series, but maybe I'm misremembering some points. I also can't remember if in this one it has the thing of like if you have some ribbons in your inventory and then you pick up more, whether it auto combines them, because that's really annoying because sometimes you maybe just want to take one or two with you because you're hopeful that there might be a save point, in the next area, but there might not be one of the magic item boxes that transfers all the contents through to wherever another item box is. So you can leave some in the item box at any given time, and sometimes, maybe often, there will be ribbons right next to the typewriter, but then sometimes you'll really want to save and you just don't have any on you. I suppose you can discard them at least.
Yeah. All right, so I think we covered the majority of stuff. Is there anything else that you think we definitely have to mention before going into our final thoughts and ultimate verdict on this one?
I don't know about have to, but like there is like a kind of interesting bonus game that you unlock once you finish the game, which is kind of I don't know how to explain it. It's like a first-person shooter where you can play as different characters from the game, like even Wesker and things like that. And it's like a random assortment of rooms from the entire game. So you'll be starting in some room in France, and then suddenly you'll be in Antarctica and needing to take out loads of zombies there. And it's a very different vibe. I remember you could unlock something by completing them, but maybe it was the infinite rocket launcher or something like that. But I just remember that being really weird. And also that I'm guessing, I haven't looked it up, but I'm guessing that, what was it called? Survivor? Resident Evil Gun Survivor? Like the light gun game?
Mm-hmm.
Was basically, they just reused all the assets because the game was already in 3D. So they just,
that makes
became like
a lot
a
of
run and gun version of this.
Yeah, they took the only 3D Resident Evil and borrowed from it. Smart. Okay, so the only 3D Resident Evil of the classic series, we are going to come to a verdict on it. At the end of every episode of Smashing Bricks, we decide whether the game that we've just played was worth revisiting in 2026 and beyond, and if it is, well then, it was a smash. But if it wasn't, and if we wouldn't necessarily recommend it to people, it was more of a brick. So, Danny, which do you think Resident Evil Code Veronica is, and why?
I mean, I was definitely coming at it with from more of a Smash point of view, and I still think that if you're a fan of the series, and as you've said, like if you're invested in the lore, say, then it is a Smash for sure. But if you're approaching it how I did and have never played any Resident Evil before, this is not the place to start, I don't think. Maybe the remake might be, but this is probably more of a brick for that audience.
So you're going to go with brick?
I'm going to go with Smash. No, I'm going to go with Smash personally.
Okay.
That's what I lean towards, but I feel like you've actually... I don't want to say brought me down, but I mean,
I'm sorry.
You've brought me around to kind of realizing kind of different perspectives, whereas maybe I've been a bit too rose tinted with with some of it.
Oh no, I feel so bad now.
I mean, no, it's still my favorite classic Resident Evil. But I can see that it's not for everyone as much as I used to push it on friends and anyone else who cared to talk about it with me.
Okay, so Smash from Danny. And I love Resident Evil, but being that this one is sort of that in between, and having the experience I have with the other games and my opinions on the other games, I'm gonna call Code Veronica a brick. 94 out of 100 aggregate score on Metacritic, but I'm gonna go against it and say brick because I think it is that transition. It's a one-off. It's kind of its own thing, and I don't think it does what I like about Resident Evil as well as a lot of the other games. One thing I wrote down was that I don't really like Resident Evil outside unless it is done in such a way that outside feels like it is closing in on you. And I felt like a lot of the atmosphere in this game was just not where I wanted it to be for a Resident Evil game. And I think I value atmosphere incredibly highly in Resident Evil games because the gameplay is so kind of basic and not phenomenal to begin with, right? It's a Resident Evil game. It's got tank controls. It's hard to line yourself up with things. It's a game that you kind of fight with. So the atmosphere does a lot for the experience, and I felt like that was not as much there for me. Plus some of the other things I said, besides the visuals, it just it didn't have the same kind of puzzle box nature that I loved about some of the others, that sort of thing. I know I didn't finish it all the way, but that's where I'm standing on that one. I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry to all the people who love Resident Evil Code Veronica, but I'm going to call this one a brick. I apologize. So that makes...
It's because of Steve, isn't it?
It's Steve. I don't even care about Steve. He's terrible, but whatever. They always have terrible characters. Anyway, that makes Resident Evil Code Veronica a question block, which means pick it up anyway, see what you think about it. You've gotten both sides from us, and now you get to make the choice. Anyway, that's that. Thank you, everyone, for listening and playing along with us. And please, tell your friends about the show if you like the show. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting platform and leave us a glowing rating and review if whatever you're listening on has them. If you want to go above and beyond to support the show monetarily while getting some fun perks like extra episodes, head over to patreon.smashingbricks.com and become a patron for as little as $1 a month. As always, I would like to thank Starman supporter Ms. Muso. Thanks, Ms. Muso. You'll also be thanked on every episode if you join at the Tanuki tier and above. And a Starman will even get you on the show as a guest. Wow, that's cool. Okay, we have a Discord server, so head over there at links.smashingbricks.com. You can find all of those links to the Discord and everything else, and you can come and talk to us about everything. As for next episode, I will be joined once again by regular guest Kyle Stalick, and we will be playing Rocket Knight Adventures for the SEGA Genesis. So get your hands on a copy of that, play along, send in your thoughts, and join us next time on Smashing Bricks. That wraps it up for today. I'm Eddie Inzauto. That is Danny Russell. Thanks, Danny.
Not at all. It's been fun.
And until next time, may the nostalgia be with you.